I'm sorry, Dr. Patel, but the board has unanimously decided to discontinue Project Nexus. I stared at Dr. Elizabeth Winters, the CEO of Helix Pharmaceuticals, as she delivered the news with practiced corporate sympathy. Behind her, through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the executive conference room, Chicago's skyline glittered in a late afternoon sun, as distant and unreachable as my research now seemed. You're shutting down a treatment that could save millions of lives because it's not profitable enough. My voice remained steady, though my hands clenched beneath the polished mahogany table. The market for rare diseases is limited by definition, Amara, she replied, using my first name as though we were still friends, as though she hadn't just plunged a knife into 3 years of groundbreaking work. The development costs for your multicellular regeneration therapy would never be recouped. My name is Dr. Amara Patel, and until that moment, I had been a leading research scientist at Helix Pharmaceuticals, one of the world's premier medical research companies. My work focused on cellular regeneration, specifically, a revolutionary approach that could potentially cure over 200 rare degenerative diseases. Diseases like the one that had taken my sister's life when we were teenagers. We'll be reallocating resources to Dr. Crawford's cholesterol medication, Elizabeth continued. His approach is more commercially viable. Dr. James Crawford, of course, my cousin, who had joined Helix 2 years after me, with significantly less impressive credentials but impeccable connections through his marriage to the board chairman's daughter. His innovative cholesterol drug was merely a slight modification of existing treatments, one that would allow Helix to extend their patent protection and keep charging premium prices for essentially the same medication. And my team? I asked, thinking of the brilliant scientists who had dedicated themselves to Project Nexus. They'll be reassigned to various departments. James has requested Maya Chin for his team, given her expertise in molecular binding. Maya was my top researcher, practically my right hand. Of course, James would cherry-pick her for his project. When do we shut down? End of the month. We'll need a comprehensive transfer of all research materials, of course. James will be overseeing the archiving process. The final twist of the knife. Not only was my cousin getting the funding and my best researcher, but he would also have access to all my work, innovations he would undoubtedly mine for his own advancement. I left the meeting in a daze, walking past the glass-walled laboratories where my team was still working, unaware that their efforts were now futile. Through one window, I saw Maya hunched over a digital microscope, probably analyzing the promising results from our latest trial, results that now wouldn't matter. Back in my office, I closed the door and finally allowed myself to feel the full weight of what had happened. Project Nexus wasn't just research to me. It had been my promise to Priya, my brilliant sister who had withered away from a rare degenerative disease that medicine couldn't touch. I'll find a cure, I had whispered to her in a hospital, 16 and devastated but determined. Even if it takes my whole life. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Dr. Raj Mehta, my mentor and the only board member who had consistently supported my work, stood in the doorway, his usual cheerful expression replaced by somber resignation. I fought for you, Amara. For what it's worth. It's worth knowing someone still cares about actual medicine, I replied, gesturing for him to enter. When did treating rare diseases become a luxury we can't afford? When hospitals became corporations, Raj sighed, closing the door behind him. But I didn't come to philosophize. I came to warn you. This isn't just about profits. I looked up sharply. What do you mean? James has been systematically undermining your work for months, suggesting your methodology is flawed, hinting that your results can't be reproduced. That's absurd. Our protocols are pristine, our data independently verified. I know that, Raj cut in gently. But most of the board members aren't scientists. They see the spreadsheets, not the science. And James is very convincing when he talks about market realities and return on investment. I leaned back in my chair, a horrible suspicion forming. The timing of this decision. It's not a coincidence, is it? Raj's expression confirmed my fears. Your third phase results were due next week. Results that, based on preliminary data, would have been impossible to ignore. Spectacular enough to justify continued funding despite the limited market. So they're killing my project before the results can force them to support it. I concluded bitterly, while James gets to pick through the remains for anything useful to his mediocre cholesterol drug. Be careful, Amara. The severance package they'll offer includes strict non-compete clauses and intellectual property provisions. They'll own everything you've done here. My mind raced, processing implications and formulating plans with the same methodical precision I applied to my research. What if I already have the phase 3 results? Raj raised an eyebrow. Do you? Not officially, but the data has been coming in for weeks. We've been analyzing it privately before the scheduled presentation. I hesitated, then decided to trust him completely. Raj, it works. The multicellular regeneration therapy works even better than we projected. In the mouse models, we've seen 87% restoration of damaged nerve tissue. It could revolutionize treatment for hundreds of conditions. They'll still own it, he said softly. Not all of it, I replied, thinking of the late nights I'd spent in my home lab, pursuing angles too experimental to officially document yet, approaches I'd kept separate from Helix official research channels, not the breakthrough that makes it truly viable. Raj studied me for a long moment, then nodded almost imperceptibly. I'm taking early retirement next month. Health reasons, officially. Unofficially, I can't support what Helix is becoming. Raj, I'm sorry. He waved away my sympathy. Don't be. I've had a good career. But listen carefully, Amara. When I leave, I'll be establishing a small research foundation focused on rare degenerative diseases. Very small, very private. The kind that might benefit from brilliant leadership. Our eyes met in perfect understanding. How long do I have? I asked. They'll be monitoring your lab access closely now, expecting you to either accept defeat or attempt something desperate. You have 72 hours before James begins his archiving process. That night, I called an emergency meeting of my core team at my apartment, not through company channels, but via personal contacts. 6 brilliant scientists gathered in my living room, confused but loyal. Project Nexus has been terminated, I announced without preamble. The shock and dismay on their faces mirrored what I had felt hours earlier. Maya was the first to speak. But why? Our results have been extraordinary. Because extraordinary treatments for rare diseases don't generate extraordinary profits, I replied. And because James Crawford has convinced the board that his cholesterol medication is a safer investment. The room erupted in outrage. These weren't corporate scientists who had joined Helix for stock options and stability. These were visionaries who believed in the power of medical innovation to change lives, to save lives. When the initial wave of anger subsided, I laid out the situation frankly. Here's what we're facing. In 3 days, all our research will be archived, effectively buried, with James given complete access. Any breakthroughs will be mined for applications to more commercially viable treatments. The work we've done to help people with rare conditions will never reach them. What can we do? Asked Dr. Sanjay Kumar, our computational modeling expert. They own everything we've developed. Not everything, I said, moving to my dining room table where I'd set up my personal laptop. For the past year, I've been pursuing a parallel research track on my own time, using my own equipment. A theoretical approach so experimental I didn't want to document it in Helix's systems until I was certain. I pulled up a molecular simulation that showed a synthetic compound interacting with damaged cellular structures in ways that made Maya gasp. Is that what I think it is? She asked, leaning closer to the screen. A bioresponsive scaffolding that adapts to specific cellular damage. Yes, I couldn't keep the pride from my voice. It's the missing piece that makes the therapy truly universal, adaptable to hundreds of different conditions with minimal modification. And Helix doesn't know about this? Sanjay asked. It's not in any of our official research, but it transforms Project Nexus from revolutionary to world-changing. The room fell silent as they processed the implications. What are you suggesting, Amara? Maya finally asked. I took a deep breath. I'm going to continue this work elsewhere. Dr. Mehta is establishing a research foundation focused specifically on rare diseases. He's invited me to lead it. But our contracts with Helix, Sanjay began, would prevent us from taking any proprietary research, I acknowledge, and I won't ask any of you to do that. What I'm proposing is that we secure the essential third phase results that prove our approach works, results that Helix is trying to suppress, and make sure they become part of the scientific record. After that, each of you needs to make your own decision. Over the next 48 hours, we worked around the clock in 2 parallel operations. At Helix, we appeared to be grudgingly preparing for project shutdown, organizing materials for archiving. But we were actually meticulously documenting our third phase results, creating comprehensive records that would be impossible to dismiss or suppress. Meanwhile, in shifts, team members came to my home lab, where we refined the bioresponsive scaffolding concept, work that had never been part of Helix's official research and thus remained mine. On the morning of the third day, I arrived at Helix to find James Crawford waiting in my lab, his expression a mixture of sympathy and poorly concealed triumph. Amara, Elizabeth asked me to check how the archiving preparation is going. I know this must be difficult. I smiled tightly. Everything's in order, James. We're professionals after all. He wandered around the lab, examining equipment that would soon be repurposed for his project. It's a shame about Nexus. An interesting concept, just not quite there scientifically. Perhaps in another decade. The condescension in his tone made my blood boil. But I maintained my composure. Science is full of setbacks. But data doesn't lie, does it? Something in my voice made him glance at me sharply. What do you mean? Just that the scientific record has a way of vindicating good research eventually. Before he could respond, his phone rang. After a brief conversation, his expression darkened. I need to go, but I'll be back this afternoon to begin the archiving. He paused at the door. I've requested that it restrict your team's access to the project servers just to ensure an orderly transition. Standard protocol. After he left, Maya approached my workstation. It's done, she whispered. The complete third phase results have been uploaded to 3 separate medical research repositories under embargo. They'll be published simultaneously at noon tomorrow. I checked my watch. By then, it would be too late for Helix to stop them. The data would be out there. Proof that our therapy worked extraordinarily well, exactly as we had predicted. What about the extraction? I asked quietly. Sanjay finished the secure backup an hour ago, before they restricted our access. Everything we've officially documented is preserved, exactly as it existed in Helix's systems. Not to steal, but to protect, to ensure that if Helix later tried to claim our results were flawed or manipulated, we would have the original, unaltered data as evidence. At 5:00 p.m., I submitted my resignation letter to Elizabeth Winters personally. Her surprise quickly morphed into calculation. Amara, let's not be hasty. Perhaps we could find another research direction for someone with your talents. My talents are dedicated to curing rare degenerative diseases, I replied calmly. Since that's not Helix's priority, it's best I pursue that work elsewhere. Your contract includes a 2-year non-compete clause, she reminded me, her voice hardening. And all research you've conducted here remains Helix property. I'm well aware of what belongs to Helix, I said, maintaining eye contact. Just as I'm aware of what doesn't. As I walked out of Helix Pharmaceuticals for the last time, carrying only my personal belongings, I felt strangely light. I had spent 3 years there, believing I was working toward my promise to Priya. Now I understood it had been merely preparation for the real work ahead. The next morning, as the third phase results of Project Nexus were simultaneously published in 3 respected medical journals, I sat in Raj Mehta's sunlit home office, discussing the structure of what would become the Priya Patel Foundation for Regenerative Medicine. My phone buzzed repeatedly with notifications, colleagues reading the published results, science journalists seeking comments, and increasingly frantic messages from Elizabeth Winters demanding an explanation for the publications. I ignored them all. Helix is going to be furious, Raj noted, watching my phone light up again. They'll claim you violated agreements by publishing without approval. The research team followed all proper scientific protocols for data collection and analysis, I replied. The results speak for themselves. If Helix wants to publicly explain why they canceled a project that showed such promising results for treating rare diseases, that's their choice. And Crawford? James will do what he's always done, take credit for others' work while avoiding any actual scientific risk. But it won't matter. The foundation of his success was always his connections, not his innovations. My phone rang again. Maya this time. I answered immediately. It's everywhere, she said without preamble. The publications have already been picked up by major medical news outlets. #Project Nexus is trending among medical researchers. Helix's PR department is in chaos. And the team? 5 of us have resigned so far. Elizabeth is offering ridiculous incentives to keep the rest, but I doubt it will work. Once word got out about how they shut down a treatment that could help so many people just because the market was too small. She paused. Where do we go from here, Amara? I looked at Rai, who nodded encouragingly. The Patel Foundation for Regenerative Medicine. I said, we'll need brilliant scientists who care more about patients than patents. 6 months later, I stood in the modest laboratory of our newly established foundation. Around me, many familiar faces from my Helix team worked with purpose and renewed passion. On the wall hung a simple photograph of Priya, not as a patient, but as the vibrant, brilliant girl she had been before her illness, her eyes alight with the same curiosity that drove our research. Our funding came from a coalition of patient advocacy groups, individual donors affected by rare diseases, and a surprising source: 3 pharmaceutical companies that specialized in treatments for less common conditions. They had recognized the potential value in our approach and offered partnerships that focused on patient access rather than maximum profit. Maya entered the lab, excitement evident in her usually composed demeanor. The preliminary human trial results just came in from Dr. Nguyen's team in Boston, she announced, handing me a tablet. I scanned the data, my heart racing. The bioresponsive scaffolding, my personal breakthrough that had never been part of Helix research, had performed exactly as our models predicted when combined with the foundational therapy we had developed at Helix. In 12 patients with rare degenerative conditions, we were seeing an average 64% restoration of damaged tissue function, unprecedented results that would transform countless lives. We did it, I whispered, thinking of Priya. We actually did it. My phone chimed with an email notification. The sender's name made me pause. Elizabeth Winters, Helix Pharmaceuticals. Asterisk Dr. Patel. Asterisk. Asterisk recent developments in the pharmaceutical landscape have led Helix board to reconsider our position on treatments for rare conditions. We would like to discuss a potential collaboration with the Patel Foundation, with generous funding and full research autonomy guaranteed. Asterisk. On a personal note, I acknowledge that the decision to discontinue Project Nexus was short-sighted. Your subsequent work has demonstrated both the scientific validity and the moral importance of pursuing treatments regardless of market size. Asterisk. James Crawford is no longer with Helix. His cholesterol medication showed disappointing results in extended trials and has been discontinued. Asterisk. I hope you will consider this opportunity to bring your groundbreaking therapy to patients on a global scale with Helix's manufacturing and distribution capabilities. Asterisk regards. Elizabeth Winters, CEO. Maya, reading over my shoulder, let out a low whistle. Are you going to accept? I considered the question carefully. The foundation's resources were limited. A partnership with Helix would indeed help get the treatment to patients faster and on a larger scale. But at what cost? We'll counteroffer, I decided. A limited manufacturing and distribution agreement that guarantees affordable access for all patients, with the foundation maintaining complete control of the research and treatment protocols. And if they refuse? I smiled, thinking of the 3 other pharmaceutical companies that had already approached us with partnership offers after seeing our preliminary results. Then we'll find partners who understand that medicine shouldn't be a luxury for the few, but a right for everyone, regardless of how rare their condition might be. Later that evening, as I was reviewing the latest trial data in my office, Raj stopped by. The Foundation's board meeting had just concluded, with unanimous approval of my proposed response to Helix. You've changed the paradigm, Amara, he said proudly, not just with the science, but with how we approach treatment development for rare diseases. We've changed it, I corrected him. All of us together. Your sister would be proud. I touched the small photograph of Priya on my desk. She always said I was too stubborn for my own good. In this case, stubborn enough for the good of millions, Raj replied. When they told you it was impossible to create a universal regenerative therapy for rare conditions, you didn't just prove them wrong. You showed them a completely different way of thinking about the problem. On my computer screen, cellular structures regrew and repaired themselves in real-time imaging from our latest trials. Each pixel represented hope for someone suffering from a condition medical science had previously considered untreatable. Sometimes, I said, watching the miraculous process unfold, the greatest breakthroughs happen only after someone tells you they're impossible. I thought of James Crawford with his impressive connections and mediocre science, of Elizabeth Winters, who had valued market size over medical need, of all the voices that had said treating rare diseases couldn't be profitable enough to matter. They had been right about one thing: pursuing treatments for rare conditions would never generate the billions in profits that blockbuster drugs for common conditions could. But they had been catastrophically wrong about what mattered in medicine. As news of our breakthroughs spread throughout the medical community, other researchers began shifting their focus to previously neglected rare diseases. Funding patterns started to change. Patient advocacy groups gained unprecedented influence in research priorities. My phone chimed with a text from Maya. Asterisk, the ongoing trial just reported 72% restoration in patient number 7. Previous condition considered irreversible. The attending physician described it as nothing short of miraculous. Asterisk. I smiled, thinking of Priya again. We did it, I whispered to her memory. We changed everything. Sometimes the most powerful response to rejection isn't dramatic confrontation or bitter resentment. It's the quiet, relentless pursuit of what you know was right. When Helix Pharmaceuticals had shut down Project Nexus for being commercially impractical, they had unknowingly set in motion a transformation of the entire medical research landscape. And as for James Crawford, last I heard, he was working at a considerably smaller pharmaceutical company, developing generic medications with steadily diminishing prestige. It turned out that connections could only carry you so far when the science itself didn't deliver. The impossible cure had become possible after all, not just for rare diseases, but for a medical research system that had lost sight of its true purpose: healing people regardless of how rare or common their conditions might be. And that, perhaps, was the most important breakthrough of all.